Okay, here's some segment addition word problems. Like anything else in geometry, we're going to need a diagram. So what I like to do is diagram any pieces of information or whatever they're giving me. So in this case, it's saying Jose is 11 kilometers east of the water tower. Remind yourself of what your directions are before you do this. That might help. And then start off by actually, what I like to do is actually drawing a water tower, H2O. And it's saying Jose is 11 kilometers east of the water tower. So I'm gonna give J for Jose here, and I'm gonna say this is 11 kilometers. And what I like to do is I like to give these brackets here. So it's kind of showing that this is 11. And I'm gonna go on to say, okay, Terrell is 12 kilometers west of the same water tower. So we're going west now, and here's Terrell, and he's going a distance of 12. Without this diagram, without this visual, this question is going to be difficult at first. Once you get a visual of it, though, you might be able to start working through it. So relative to the water tower, where is the midpoint? So right away, midpoint, I know I'm going to, at some point, have to use this midpoint formula here, a plus b over 2. And I could just use my 11 plus 12 over 2, 23 over 2 is equal to 11.5. So I know my midpoint is going to be somewhere 11.5 kilometers. Here, recognize that this whole, because we've added it here, this whole segment is 23. And if the midpoint is at 11.5 and this here is 11, well, I probably need to go another 0.5 from this point to here to get to my midpoint. And now that I know where my midpoint is, I actually know my midpoint is to the left. And to be to the left is to be to the west. And how much to the west? Well, if from here to here is 11 and I've gone and I know my midpoint's 11.5, the difference of that is 0.5. So I'm 0.5 to the west. And that's just a directional, navigational type of problem. The diagram does a great job to help you plot your midpoint, and then you could even line it up with your segment here and find that it's to the left. Again, same type of question where you're making a diagram at the beginning of a hike on a trail that goes due east. Hayden noticed that she was 4 kilometers west of a rundown shack. So feel free to draw a shack, right? Don't be afraid here. And then you're gonna put Hayden to the west, to the left. So here's Hayden. She's 4 to the west. And then the midpoint is 2 kilometers to the east. So again, we're working with midpoint here of the shack. Here's the midpoint, the MP, and we know that's 2 kilometers to the west. And what they're asking for is how far will it be to her final destination here? And we're gonna use our segment addition postulate to help us figure that from Hayden to midpoint is 6. And then our understanding of midpoint is that these two distances will be equidistant. So if from here to here is 6, from midpoint to final destination would be 6. So from Hayden to final destination would be a total of, I mean, you could say Hayden to midpoint plus midpoint to final destination. I'm putting a lot of kind of variables here. 6 plus 6 is going to be 12. And you can see that if we just kind of bracketed this whole segment here. So this is kind of same like the question before, but they're incorporating well, let's say you don't necessarily have to use your midpoint formula, but you do have to use your understanding of midpoint. This is the toughest question you'll face. One thing I want to point out is, as we go along, you'll see more diagrams needed to be drawn. So Ebony is 17 miles south of Mai. So here we go with south, which puts Ebony down here. And we know we want to use, again, our brackets, which kind of help us. They'll help us with overlapping. You're going to see this is a question in which the segments are going to overlap. Now, watch what happens here. Kimmy is 18 miles north of Gloria. So this is Mai and this is Ebony. Where is Kimmy and Gloria in this situation? Well, they really haven't presented themselves. There's no way for me to plot Kimmy or Gloria because there's no person for me to work off of. So if this is my first step, I may need to hold off on this and go on and treat this as my second step. And you have to be aware that could happen in problems, that sometimes they're going to give you a step that you need to complete later on in the question in order for you to go back. Because here Gloria is 22 miles south of Mai. So I could connect with Gloria with Mai because Mai is here. So let me do that. Now, if Gloria is 22 miles south and Ebony was 17 miles, well, Gloria is probably going to be further away, right? Because her distance is greater than Ebony's. Her distance is 22. Now, that allows me to fill out a couple things right away. Since from Mai to Ebony is 17 and from Mai to Gloria is 22, the difference is 5. So I know and can fill out that Ebony is 5 miles from Gloria. So that kind of helps me start to fill out some of the missing pieces. Now I'm going to go back to Kimmy and Gloria. Kimmy is 18 miles north of Gloria. So here's Gloria. Ebony is 5 miles north. So that means Kimmy's got to be somewhere up here because she's further north from Gloria than Ebony is. So I know that Kimmy is 18 miles north of Gloria. Now that allows me to fill in another piece here. Since from Ebony to Gloria is 5, and from Kimmy to Gloria is 18, I could do 18 minus 5 and get 13. So I know from Kimmy to Ebony is 13. And now that gives me another piece. Because I know from Mai to Ebony is 17, and from Kimmy to Ebony is 13, I know that Mai to Kimmy is 4. So I'm able to actually plot the distance between all of these persons on this line here, so that no matter what they ask me, I could find that out. But in this case, I ask from Ebony to Kimmy, which is right here, Ebony to Kimmy, and I've been able, which is equal to 13. Now this may take a few attempts. You also might want to, and I could provide that for you, some students actually got some graph paper and actually plotted these people on the line on a graph line, and we're able to count spaces. If that's something you need to do, I can help you with that. So this should help you with your segment addition.